Hello, fellow beings of light, and welcome to episode 7 of the Your Goddess Awakening podcast. This is part 3 in a 12-part series entitled 6 Degrees of Soul Separation. As in, we are all 6 degrees away from ascending to or expanding into our highest light body. Throughout this series, we are delving into my personal journey to accessing, healing, and merging the 6 soul aspects of my own. In part 2, we delved into the first soul aspect to separate from my highest light body, Arya. I don't know about those of you that joined me for it, but it was an emotional one. Our time in the Akashic Records uncovered a deep wound that formed, one that had a growing impact on each soul aspect that followed, and a massive impact on myself. According to Arya, anyway. I'm both in agreement and not in agreement with that. Now, the wounds that we are uncovering along the way are something that we will be getting into in a later part. But I want to stop and take a moment to be clear that these types of wounds that open and carry forward from one aspect to those that follow tend to create an additional overarching wound of guilt. I mention it here to both make you aware of it and to offer an opportunity for you to begin to shift your perspective regarding guilt, particularly on a soul aspect level when it comes to yourself. I also mention it because clearly my own soul aspects need to hear this too. Just as we are all connected as one, our soul aspects are all connected as one. They are one with each other and part of the whole that is our highest light body. This is important because when a choice is made by one soul aspect, it is made by them all, by the whole. When a wound is allowed to open by one soul aspect, it is allowed to open by them all, by the whole. An example from the last part of this series. Arya and the other 4 soul aspects that came before me need not feel guilt for the impact each of their perceived individual and collective choices have had on me, because I not only made those individual choices with them, but I made the collective choice with them that I would bear the brunt of repairing the damage caused. I agreed to it. As a side note, I actually came to learn this, let's call it concept, in a backwards way. When I came to know and accept that I had intentionally chosen on a soul level the life that I have lived, the obstacles and trauma that I have had to overcome before I incarnated into this body, I was hit with an immense amount of guilt for the little girl, my inner child, that went through so much because of my choice. That little girl, my inner child, was having none of that, however. Whew. And if I ever question my own strength, I need only look to her to remember it, because she made it very clear to me that we are one, that we made that choice together, that I had nothing to feel guilty about. That lesson is something I now find myself passing on to not only you, but to Arya and the soul aspects that came between me and her. I was just thinking to myself that we were getting sidetracked from what this episode is supposed to be about, and also getting a little confused because there's more coming through that is building upon what I've just said. I'm being guided to let go, though, to continue allowing this episode to unfold as it is, to allow what is coming through to come through, that it will make sense. Okay, then. I guess that's what we're doing. I'm being called to continue building on the concept of soul aspects being one, choosing together as one, to take it a step further. And it may seem like we get sidetracked again, but just bear with me. Arya was the first of 6 soul aspects to separate from my highest light body. And I'm betting you came into this episode thinking that it is going to be about my second soul aspect to separate. You'd actually be wrong, or maybe right, depending on how you end up looking at it after this next part. No, we will be delving into my 5th soul aspect, Shima. Shima. Why the 5th? When I began the process of connecting with my other 5 soul aspects, they came to me out of order in terms of Earth time. My first interaction was receiving a collective message from them and their individual light codes as well. Those light codes came in an order of 1, 2, 3, 5, 4. I didn't realize that at the time because I knew nothing about each aspect. I didn't know the who, where, or the when. Then, when I began reaching out through my Akashic records to connect with them one-on-one, they came to me in an order of 1, 5. A little side quest with my light body. 2, 3, 4. Catching a pattern? Shima, the 5th soul aspect to separate in terms of Earth time. The one that came directly before me. She likes to jump around when it comes to order. After initially questioning the why behind this, what I was getting was that I was receiving them in the order of the lessons they had to share, in the order of what I needed to know in my current journey. Made sense, so I kept moving forward in my work with them. As I was thinking through this episode, though, something more came. Just a gentle nudge. A reminder that didn't really make sense until right now with what has been coming through as I'm actually recording this. It was a reminder of a concept that is as important as us all being one and connected. The concept that time is irrelevant. Yes, past lives, our soul aspects, inherently happen in the past. It's in the name, right? But there are also parallel lives and alternate dimensions or levels with alternate versions of ourselves, probabilities. So, is it that far of a stretch to consider that our past lives could occur parallel or on an alternate dimension or level to our own? Or even, yep, I'm gonna go ahead and say it, out of order. Fully, or maybe even when it comes to specific moments. I know. That was more of a leap further than a step, but this is where it is leading, what is coming through. Questions I'm being directed to consider and to put forth to all of you. What the larger purpose of this episode is, or at least what I think it is. If we can accept and acknowledge that all of our soul aspects are one, that they choose as one, that they work together, can we apply that to the concept that all living and non-living things are one, and come to the conclusion that we all choose as one, work as one to some extent? Think co-creating, guys. I'm sure you've heard the term. And if we can accept and acknowledge that our soul aspects can choose together, work together out of order in terms of our earth time, can we, all living and non-living things, choose together, work together out of order? Can the current direction and obstacles occurring on Earth be changed in the past or parallel to the present? Yeah, that's some sci-fi time travel level shit. But it's something to think about. And even if I can't fully grasp it yet, understand how it works or how it can be used, I can sense the validity of it. I can sense the role it could play in the remembrance and reawakening of all. And who am I kidding? My inner child is bouncing around at the idea, giddy with wanting to find evidence of times where it has already happened in history. And I'm with her on that. I'm definitely curious. Not now, though. Now is not the time for that. It's time to get back on track, to finally get deeper into my fifth soul aspect, Shima, and maybe get some further connections with these questions I'm being guided to ponder and share. I want to preface what follows by indicating that I'm not sure if we will actually be visiting the Akashic Records in this episode, as I've never directly communicated or connected with Shima, within them or beyond them. I have instead received from her in other ways. That's something that honestly only just occurred to me yesterday. I hadn't even noticed, and I'm kind of shocked because she is the aspect that has had the most profound impact on me and that I've had the strongest connection with in general and in terms of abilities and wounds. How is that possible? Well, we communicate and connect in other ways so naturally that it didn't seem odd or different from the others to me. I often hear and work with someone I believe to be her guide. I also get visual clips of her life, and I can sense her, feel her, even right now, because I know that she is frustrated. I kind of wanted this to unfold in order, but it looks like she has other plans. She's frustrated because she's unable to speak. The feeling that came through yesterday when I was working on this episode, and now again while I'm recording it, is this painful pressure on the right side of my neck. And along with it, a vivid visual of an intentional injury to that area that left her with no voice. Whew. There is more than one way to move forward from here, and I'm really struggling with it. She is worked up. It's a combination of me knowing about the injury now, and I think her finally opening up to sharing some things where she was closed off to me before. She wants to share specific things, but my dear Shima, you were a storyteller and you should know better than to jump to the ending. So I am going to take a moment to breathe and maybe calm her down a bit so we can proceed. Bear with me here. Shima was Native American, living on the Pacific Northwest coast in the mid-1800s. She held many roles within her tribe, preserving the history and culture of the tribe and the region, sharing it with outsiders who were a growing occurrence, and teaching the children of the tribe. Not only that, she was also considered a healer, a medicine woman, because of her knowledge of the spirit and plant life. What has often come to mind when it comes to her is flashes of diplomacy, being a bridge between settlers and the tribe, a knowledge gatherer, a peacekeeper. She never had children of her own. In fact, the phrase that has come up in regards to her over and over has been the one without child, but with many children. A reference, I believe, to her role as a teacher of children, as well as a caregiver to the tribe as a whole. Shima knew love once, and it cost her. It cost her her voice, her purpose, or at least that's how she sees it. That is something I'm hoping to change today, though. This is the part of her story that came to me yesterday for the first time, when I made the realization that we had never directly communicated in the way that I have with the other soul aspects. When she finally shared with me the why, when I'm guessing it couldn't be kept hidden any longer thanks to this episode. That love was, pardon the outdated phrasing, but it's her thoughts coming through. that love was with a white man, a rich white man connected with the leadership of the settlers in the area where both the tribe and the white man were trying to occupy. Despite her many interactions with them, her efforts that shared information and resources that kept the peace, the man's family saw her as biting the hand that fed her. She was physically attacked, injured, and left without the voice that had, in her eyes, always defined her. After the injury, she returned to the mainland, the original home of her tribe, and became isolated, both out of fear of judgment because of her choice and the punishment she received, and also because of how she felt about herself and how she let her tribe down by no longer being able to speak to and for them. From the sensations I'm getting in relaying that, I would say that she developed what we would consider social anxiety and perhaps even agoraphobia. She lost who she was. She allowed herself to lose her purpose, her role as a gatherer and a teller of history, and as a healer. The impact of that injury, that is the wound she passed forward. It's probably hard to believe, but I actually struggle with communicating. I have anxiety when it comes to public speaking, and I too have fallen into social anxiety after a traumatic event triggered me to self-isolate, to not only avoid judgment, but because I was judging myself. The reason for the injury, her foolish choices as she sees it, that added on to our collective wound of guilt. This is where I am going to interject, though, because I know something she does not. And regardless of whether or not she need not feel guilty because we are one and all chose together, she need not feel guilty for another reason. The man that Shima fell in love with, the man she was punished for falling in love with, when I sensed their relationship through her yesterday for the first time, I also sensed him because I know him all too well. He was and is our highest light body's twin flame, and as a result, all of our soul aspects twin flame. For those unfamiliar with the term, a twin flame is someone that is meant to be a part of your life in one way or another, and not just in a single life, but across all lives, past, parallel, alternate. Some may use the word soulmate. I prefer soul matched because the relationship from one life to the next might not be romantic at all. There is just some deep connection on a light body level, and in turn on a soul aspect level, that brings you together over and over again, regardless of the who, what, and where choices you each make when incarnating each round of separation, you always find your way to each other. Our twin flame is known to me as Apollo. In my current incarnation, he is a non-living guide, a member of my team. He is one of the 4 primary guides that have surrounded me my entire life. He represents Earth, healing, and my heart chakra. He is always standing behind me, always supporting me, and always there to catch me should I ever stumble. I have witnessed or sensed him when it comes to not only myself, but to my highest light body, and now with 2 of my other soul aspects. That leaves 2 that I'll have to delve a bit more in to find him, but I bet you I will. For me, he is a guide. For Leora, my highest light body, he was a best friend and constant companion. They were children, so too young for love in that sense. And for the 2 soul aspects I can now connect him with, he was the love interest. Lucky them. I might be a little jealous. I get to feel the immense love and connection coming from him every day, all day. But it will always be on a non-physical, spiritual level. That's both sad and comforting at the same time. So, my dear Shima, I know you are paying attention right now. You and your love were not wrong. You were meant to find each other. You were meant to connect in whatever way Source and the universe chose for you to connect in your lifetime. It was meant to be. You couldn't have avoided it, so you need not feel guilty for it. Do not allow your memories of him, your relationship, your time together, to be ruined by it. Now, with that bit of background and hopefully a little bit of healing out of the way, I'd like to move on to the ways that I have connected with Shima on deeper levels, on levels beyond her as an individual. Earlier in the episode, I mentioned that I often hear and work with someone I believe to be her guide. If you have taken our awareness upgrade course or listened to our, it would have been our 2024 winter solstice activation, then you are familiar with the unnamed shaman that is part of my team of guides. I consider him as such, especially with him playing a larger and larger role in my own missions. But in reality, he was and is Shima's guide. He often comes forward or through in her place, communicating messages on her behalf, and I believe to some extent helping to facilitate the ways in which Shima and I do connect through clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairvoyance. He is who came forward when I made my first visit to my Akashic Records for the purpose of connecting with her. And the message that came through was for her, but it was also for me. That message was, how does it feel to be home? To be reconnected to the land, to the people and animals who inhabit it. You are back where you belong, on the ocean, where the sun, the moon, and the stars meet the water, where animals, sea life, and birds roam free, where we are all one with all, and all is one with us. The land welcomes you back. The water welcomes you back. Your people welcome you back. They remember you. Remember us. The great teacher and medicine woman, the one who kept our culture, our stories, our connection alive in our youth. The one who fought for our rights to hold on to and care for those things. The daughter, the teacher, the healer, the songbird. The one without child, but with many children. The light in the dark, the shadow in the day. The stars within our hearts, the dance within our feet. The song within our throats, the sight within our mind. You have been missed, but you have returned. I am with you now. We are with you now. Reconnect with us through reconnecting with the land upon which we stood. Now, when I say the message was for me as well, it wasn't from the words directly. Those were clearly directed at Shima, but rather from the, I don't even know how to put it, the between the lines, the knowing that came there, particularly when it came to the welcome home, the welcome back. Those words, something just clicked, leading to a series of questions followed by coincidences uncovered while seeking answers to them, all leading up to a realization that the current area in which I reside was Shima's home. Those coincidences? Well, first, up until 3 years ago, I had spent 40 years living in the same region, in the same county of my state. The move from there was both forced upon me and at the same time needed. I needed a fresh start. I needed to be able to get away, to put distance between myself and some things and some people there. When it came to moving, my options were very limited financially, and that meant that the potential cities that I could move to were also very limited as well. But during my search, a home over 150 miles away from the primary search area that I had finally settled upon, it just randomly popped up in my results. It had no reason for being there. It was too far away. And it wasn't much. And honestly, it still isn't 3 years later. But it called to me. The area that it was located, it called to me. And I made it my home. Second, during the course of my journey last year, my guides took me to a place from my childhood, during a series of meditations. It was during those meditations that I finally let go of the narrative of abuse that everything in my life had been filtering through up until that point. It was also during them that I found my remembrance of my abilities, the knowledge that not only had they always been with me, but that my primary set of guides had always been with me as well, both since I was a child, since I was born, since I incarnated into this body. That place was a minor memory from my childhood, one that took place about 36 years ago, but a place that held a lot of significance to me, that clung to me even after I'd left. Both the exact location that my guides took me, the side of a bluff overlooking the ocean, and an 18th century house that I developed an obsession with, which was located alongside it. And believe me, this house was nothing special. But I'll jump ahead to a third coincidence for a moment and say that that house, it came back into my life about 8 years ago in the form of a painting of it done by a local artist that I now own, that despite the majority of my belongings still being in moving boxes in my garage, no comment on that, it is actually tucked away in the closet in my room. I don't know why. I don't even remember how it got there. I can't explain it. It's just there. And now I'll connect the second with a fourth and probably a fifth coincidence. The location of that bluff, it can be found by following a straight line of two spits that stick out from the coast between here and there, as in with a high enough power telescope, I could probably see it from the city that I now live in. And finally, to bring it all full circle, the location of that bluff, a very small piece of land on a small island, and that old house, it was, for a brief period of time during the mid-1800s, a settlement for the Native American tribe that resides in my city and region, as well as white settlers. There's just too many connections, too strong a sensation, a knowing for all of this to just be a coincidence. I can feel Shima here. I can feel her shaman guide here. I can feel a connection with the land here that goes beyond it just being the place that I now call home. I can see Shima on that bluff picking flowers and other plant life. I can see her and our twin flame, her love, in that old house. I can see it. I can see visions of it, moments of it, and I can feel them. Now, there are other places that have called to me across our globe that I've had minor obsessions with because of history classes or for some other reason. And I'm sure I would feel similar connections with the land there because I recognize that my other soul aspects, and perhaps even alternate versions of them or my current life, called those places home. But this is where I've ended up in this life. in this version of me, in the home of my fifth soul aspect, in the home of the soul aspect that has a habit of appearing out of order when it comes to the rest. I believe there's a bigger reason for that. I'm not in a hurry to figure it out, though, but rather, I'm content to let it unfold as it is meant to, which is a rare thing for me. I am the queen of falling down rabbit holes, but not this time, though. I'm not really sure the reason why I've been called to share all these coincidences with you, this part of my experience with Shima, beyond maybe it is meant to help make you more aware of connections and coincidences that come into your field when it comes to your own soul aspects, your own past lives, and even twin flames, since we got into that a bit too. Whether what you got out of this episode was that, or those questions to ponder from earlier, I want to thank you for joining me today and for this episode. It went a little off track, a little off format, but that's okay. I think it went how it was meant to and has left myself, all of us, with some things to think about. And even though we didn't end up having time to take a journey into the Akashic Records, I'd like to open the channel between myself and Shima up wider for a moment and see if there's anything she wants to add or that wants to come through from her or maybe our shaman friend. Who knows? So let's see. Let's just shake it out a little bit for a second. Wiggle our fingers and toes, shake our shoulders around. Take a couple deep breaths and just focus on receiving for a second. Oh my. Okay. So, what's coming through isn't words, so I'll apologize for that because you're not hearing anything. And I don't know if maybe any of you are sensitive enough to be able to receive visuals. But whether you are or not, I will share what is coming through for me. It is a series just of clips of memories, like flipping through channels of Shima and the man that she loved, of how they met and their time together and how their relationship grew. They're very emotional. And I think this is her way of showing me that little bit of healing I tried to do, that bit of relieving some of that guilt for her choice and not letting that feeling interfere with these memories. This is her way of showing me that it helped. Very happy for her because these are definitely happy memories that I'm seeing. And there are a lot of them, even though it feels like their time together was very short. I hope some of you could see some of these, and if not, see them to kind of feel. I'm crying here. I'm sorry. I'm not even sure why. Like, they're not even that. I think these are more just her emotions coming through. of kind of releasing that guilt and reclaiming those memories. So I hope that you can, if you can't see the memories, if you can kind of sense the feelings in them, and if not that, then sense those feelings of release and in healing. Okay, that is it for this episode. A very fitting end, I'd say. Join us for next Monday's episode, which will begin the second half of our winter quarter and a new 3-part discussion, which will revolve around the theme of reconnect. Then join us again on the 27th for part 4 of the series and delving into another soul aspect. And I'll give you a hint on that one. Think Wonder Woman. Arish kamakati.